So a birthday present exploded, killing a member of the Ukrainian general staff. This was one of Zelensky's assistants, and this was the first reporting that I could find on it. Hennady Chestakov, an assistant to the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, Valery Zelensky, died on his birthday from a gift explosion. Okay, we don't know at this point whether it's an assassination or an accident or part of a broader coup, and I'll explain those in just a moment. Here, Zelensky wrote on Telegram, "Unspeakable pain and bereavement for the armed forces of Ukraine and for me personally. Today, under tragic circumstances, my assistant and close friend, Major Hennady Chestakov, died on his birthday in the family circle. An unknown explosive device went off in one of the gifts. Hennady had a wife and 4 children. My deepest condolences to the family," Zelensky wrote. Since the beginning of the full-scale invasion, Chestakov has been a reliable shoulder for Zelensky, fully devoting his life to the armed forces of Ukraine and the fight against Russian aggression. The reasons and circumstances will be established during the pretrial investigation. This was one of the first articles reporting on the subject. So, went to sleep, woke up next morning, looked at the news and tried to follow up on the story. Well, it appears it wasn't necessarily like, okay, now if you thought, like I thought, wow, the Russians, that's pretty evil, like to send somebody something for his birthday and then have it blow up. And then I also thought, like, were they trying to get Zelensky? But it was actually targeted to him. But it wasn't targeted. Like the language that I even used, targeted, isn't the right language. Turns out it looks like it was an accident. Now, if you thought that the Russians did this, I mean, so did I. And it seems like a reasonable guess to think that the Russians did it. It would be unreasonable to think, well, the Lithuanians did it, or the good people in Tanzania. I mean, because that doesn't make any sense. But in context, it makes sense that the Russians might have done something like that to assassinate. After all, the Ukrainians have gone after assassinating their opponents as well. Okay, but it wasn't that. It actually looks like what happened, and this is the same thing here, it looks like he brought the thing home. His son, he was showing a grenade that was given to him as a gift, a Western grenade, some kind of new or something, and his son was looking at it. He took it back from his son and pulled the pin, whether it was accidentally or intentionally. The pin comes out and blew him up, hurt his son. It's tragic. Right? It appears to be an accident. It's tragic. He's dead. His wife is, I'm sure, grieving. His son is injured. His other 3 children now are without a father. So it's bad. But it could, and it looked worse. It looked like an assassination. Now it looks like an accident. But this is how it was covered in the Military Summary channel. Now, if you watch a lot of YouTubers, Military Summary leans very much toward pro-Russian kind of positions. Okay, this is how they framed it, and I thought the way they framed it was terrible. Here's how it made it sound like, but it wasn't actually what it was. Let's listen to this.
Night at the local time. And first, we're going to talk about Kiev area, about Ukraine in global scope. I believe that we should remember this night from the 6th of November till the 7th of November, because starting this night, the Ukraine and the Ukrainians became a dictatorship. Before we will continue with this a little bit later.
Okay, so his framing is that this is the beginning of a dictatorship. Okay, keep listening.
But before I believe we need to discuss the situation, the event that took place with Valery Zelensky, a possible candidate, a possible solution as the next Ukrainian president. According to information we have, according to Zelensky, his assistant was killed. But according to official Ukrainian position, official police position, according to like official statement, Zelensky assistant wasn't killed, but that was something like accident. Zelensky assistant had a birthday, and not somebody, but the deputy commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Ukraine, Timchenko, sent him the presents with grenades. And according to one more time official statement, as a result of usage of this present, there was like explosion, and the assistant of Zelensky was killed, and his son was wounded.
Okay, so it made it sound like this one guy within the system is trying to send this present to his assistant in order to kill Zelensky. I mean, it almost sounded like some kind of conspiracy kind of thing, and that's not what it was at all. But it kind of gave you that kind of inclination. It led you that direction.
So we got a lot of like updates. So we have the picture. This is the grenades, and other sources are saying that those grenades were presented as a cups for vodka. So maybe they were packed as a cups for vodka. I don't know, but this is like sources that say this. Maybe this is true, maybe not. Very difficult.
That's the only place where I heard the cups for vodka part, but you could have told this whole story without including Zaluzhny or the person within the administration that sent it to him, and it still would have been a better story than the way that he's framing it, because it's sounding very different.
To understand, but anyway, that was an attack against Zaluzhny, against the possible candidate.
It was an attack against Zaluzhny, and Zaluzhny is not, to my knowledge, a candidate. And here we go.
For the next elections, the president of Ukraine. Furthermore, we got more updates that Zelensky took a decision to not to make any president elections the next year. He announced that this night. So until there is a war in Ukraine, there are going to be no president elections. And we understand that this situation can take place for years, maybe 2, 3, maybe 4, maybe 10 years. So this is the beginning.
So now, he didn't take a decision to change anything. This was part of the Ukrainian constitution as it's written, that there can't be an election during this time of war. So he's not changing it, but it's making it sound like he's just taking this dictatorial stance. And maybe in the framing of this whole narrative, that this bomb going off or this grenade going off was part of the bigger picture of that. A little bit more, and then we'll talk about it.
Of the dictatorship in Ukraine. Furthermore, according to information we have, the Zelensky signed a law that he introduced laws to parliament to extend the martial law and mobilization for another 90 days until February 14. As I understand, this is the last time when Zelensky introduced such a law. Obviously, after February 14, he will do the same, but for much longer period of time, because 90 days is still short, and anyway, sooner or later people will...
No, he's done it 90 days, every 90 days since the very beginning of the war, and that's the kind of course of action, the normal course of action. Will he do it for a longer time? Why would he do it for a longer time? If he wanted to do it for a longer time, he could have done it before. Oh, but he's wanting to become a dictator. It's part of a coup attempt. The framing of what's going on is really important.
Will start pushing him, so he will, I believe, extend these these terms for, let's say, half a year or a year, and then he will become a real dictatorship in the world.
Okay, so he's saying, I believe this is going to happen. Listen carefully when somebody says, I believe this is going to happen, or that's going to happen, as opposed to this did happen. Okay, I wanted to show you all that to say this. Let's go back to the birthday. Was it now, I give this guy an F. Just terrible reporting for what he's done. Now, he's leaning to the Russian side very clearly, but even then, his facts, there are a little bit of facts and then a whole lot of sprinkling of assumptions in it. So this isn't really good reporting. Now, if he had said, and I would hate to hear this, but if he had said, aha, we got him. We got this guy who was Zaluzhny's assistant, and we blew him up. I would actually understand that, and instead of an F, I'd give him a B, because the whole Western press thought that that's what happened initially at first, until they found out, well, it looks like it might have been an accident. So the way he framed it, though, made it sound like a coup attempt, which, because he wrapped it in the bigger picture, and somebody high in the administration sent it to him, and it was Zaluzhny as assistant, and Zaluzhny might be a presidential opponent, and Zelensky said, no, we're not going to have elections. Because of that, it looked like this big conspiracy where it really wasn't. Okay, so I tell you all that to say this. So Vlad Vexler had this really fascinating discussion the other day, just 2 days ago, facts in the battle against authoritarianism, and he talked about it like this. He said, look, you need to be as clear and honest as you can with the facts that we can establish. And he said, like, if somebody dies, you can say, we can all agree, the person's dead, the guy died. Okay, person died. That's very clear. We all get along on the same page about that. But then if you add more nuance to it, you got to be careful that the nuance doesn't stretch over into opinion. And I'm paraphrasing Vlad here, because that's not what he was. His point was, like, where do you go? How far do you go into opinion? So if you say the king was assassinated, that's the same as the man died, but it provides enough facts to show more detail. And that's okay. But if you say, It seems like a conspiracy was going on, and his arch rival was trying to poison him because he wanted to take the throne. Now that is speculative, and you have to guard against that speculative kind of thing when you're reporting to make sure that you're actually just giving the facts. And so what was happening with military summary was the speculativeness as opposed to reporting just the facts. Does that make sense? And so I'd like to hear what you think here. Like, I got it wrong at first. I thought that, wow, this is a whole new level of evil of what the Russians are doing, sending a birthday gift that, blows up. And it wasn't that. But it was because my assumptions were that that is what could happen. If there's a silver lining, it's that the Ukrainians here will now be taking extra precautions about these kind of things and maybe prevent somebody else's death along the way. As tragic as this event was for this particular person, for the Ukrainian army, for this man's family, but hopefully some good somewhere will come out of that. Okay, tell me what you think about this. Was this helpful in helping you understand what's going on and how to listen to reports? And listen, don't just listen to me. Listen to others. There's safety in numbers. There's safety when you triangulate on listening to different people's opinions. Hey, listen, I even listen to military summary just to see how they're trying to frame things, because that's important to understanding things. I learned a long time ago in organizations, like if John says this and Scott says that and Rachel says this and somebody else says that John's probably wrong and Scott's probably wrong and Rachel's even more wrong and somebody else is wrong. But if I listen to them and triangulate, I get to the place where it's just about right, trying to listen to all the opinions and then trying to triangulate on what is true within that. And there's actually a really good precedent for this. When the USS Scorpion sunk, it's a United States submarine. It sunk many years ago, decades ago, and the naval authorities couldn't figure out exactly where it was. When they assembled, I don't know, dozens, maybe 100 experts, and said, well, where do you think it was based on where it was heading and what the last known navigation coordinates were and that kind of thing. None of the experts were right. But when they took the aggregate of this dozens or 100 or so experts' opinions, and then they went to just the center point of that, the summary point of all of their choices of where it might have sunk, they were within meters of where it sank. But no particular expert was right. This is why you need to triangulate and listen to other people's views and try to understand. So in this context, was it an assassination? Doesn't look like. Was it an accident? Probably. Was it a broader coup attempt? Probably not. But you have to really think through the issues in order to get there. Okay, that's all that I have to say. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes, the comments, the coffees. And thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.